What up? So in the last video we kind of half-assed set up the access layer down here, and as always I forgot something. So I'm not sure if anyone caught it before, but we forgot to add the management VLAN to all of our switches, which by all I mean these last four. So we didn't create the VLAN 18, so our management interface is still down on these devices. Now if you're thinking, well, we copy and pasted the configuration from Access 1 to all these other switches, so it should be good, right? But no, because the VLAN information is stored in a different file other than the running config. It's called vlan.dat. And when we copy and pasted the configuration from Access 1 over to all of these, what it got was VLANs, whatever we changed them to on the access port. So this one got VLAN 11 and 12, this one got VLAN 13 and 14, and so on. But it didn't get VLAN 18 because it was not assigned to a port. We have an interface VLAN 18, but VLAN 18 does not exist in the vlan.dat file of all of these because we didn't input a command which would create that VLAN. So what we'll have to do is go into these four and put in manually VLAN 18. So I'm just going to do that real quick, bring that up, correct what we didn't do in the last video. So on all of these we just go in, configure terminal, and VLAN 18. And we'll see interface VLAN 18 change status to up. So that's all we need to do here. 18, status up. I'm actually going to do a show VLAN brief here so we can see what VLANs we have. See on Access 4 we've got VLANs 15 and 16 with no names. Those came in there because we had our access ports in that access VLAN. And you see that no VLAN 18 exists. So we'll just throw that in there, do show VLAN brief, and there we've got all three. Now on this last switch we shouldn't have to do anything, because if we do a show VLAN brief, we'll see we already got VLAN 18. VLAN 18 is our management VLAN, and this switch has our management hosts running off of it. So this switch is good. We don't need to do anything to that. Okay, so going back to what this video is actually about, we are going to set up the distribution layer here. So these two switches, distribution 1 and distribution 2. Now what we're going to do is first we're going to configure our trunk links here down to our access layer, and then we're going to throw some interface VLANs on both of these switches. Actually we're just going to be working with distribution 1, and we'll copy and paste modified config over to distribution 2 once we're done. But we're going to have interface VLANs which will serve as the default gateways for all of our hosts down here. Now we're also going to set up HSRP between these two switches. So this guy's default gateway, actually all their default gateways, is going to be sitting on a virtual IP address which is kind of in between these two switches. So we're going to have to do a little bit of IP addressing magic, well not magic, just following the rules of HSRP and assigning some IPs that we wouldn't normally assign to the ports on our distribution switches. After that we'll just set up the routed ports here for our link to the core and our link between these two switches, throw egrip on that, build a routing table, all that good stuff to get just routing working here, and after all that we'll just throw the host name on the switch and set up the v2 wide lines with our access list like we did down here. Now if you notice I did kind of have to change the management IPs around a little bit, so this is now 15, this is now 16. That's going to correspond with our VLAN 18 interface IP addresses. You'll see that later. But I had to kind of switch some things up because I made the management management subnet a little bit too small for everything, because I kind of forgot to factor in HSRP, and that's going to use 3 IPs in itself. So let's just jump into this. First I'm just going to configure the trunk links. Well, where'd everything go? So we'll go to not access 1, distribution 1, and we're just going to mouse over all of our connections here and see what we got. So we got fast Ethernet 03 for 1, and because I set it up I'll tell you access 2 is fast Ethernet 04, and then 05 to access 3, 06 to access 4, and 07 to access 5. our routed links are going to be gigabit interfaces. So one's going to the core, two's going to the other distribution switch, and we're not going to worry about Ether channel in this video. I'm not going to set up those configurations. I'm going to save that for the core, so we'll come back for that. So on distribution 1, fast Ethernet 03, put this on the other side. So configure terminal, interface fast Ethernet 03. We are going to give this switch port encapsulation, switch port trunk encapsulation .1Q, so that we can enable trunking on here, and then switch port mode trunk. So this is our VLAN 10 switch, or access 1 trunk, and we are going to allow only certain VLANs over this trunk. So we're going to allow 10. Forgot to put the VLAN keyword in there. VLAN 10, which is the VLAN that this switch is the access switch for. And we're also going to add in VLAN 18, which is our management VLAN. And I'm going to throw in 20. This is going to be our voice over IP or voice VLAN once we get to that video. I'm just trying to save some time, throw it in here already. So that's something to look forward to. Now, if you noticed, I used the add keyword on those last two commands I did. If you just do switch port trunk allowed VLAN 18 after you did allow VLAN 10, then that would override it and it would only allow 18. If you're going to add VLANs to be allowed, you need to use the add keyword. Makes sense, right? So that trunk is set up with the exception of switch port no negotiate and no CDP enable. And that's our trunk for access 1. Moving on to access 2, which is on fast Ethernet 02. Switch port trunk encapsulation .1Q, switch port mode trunk, switch port trunk allow VLAN 10, not VLAN 10. We're on access 2, does not have VLAN 10 on it. So we're going to allow VLAN 11 through 12, and we're going to do the add keyword for 18 and 20. Dang it. Put no negotiate, conflict between no negotiate. Oh, I forgot to do switch port mode trunk, didn't I? Am I on the right interface here? What did I do? Okay, let's look back. Oh, shit. Okay, so I put it in fast Ethernet 02. That could be a problem. We'll fix that later. That's going to be one of our Ether channel interfaces. So right now I'm under the right interface. Switch port trunk encapsulation .1Q, switch port mode trunk, switch port trunk allow VLAN 11 through 12, switch port trunk allow VLAN add 18 and 20, switch port no negotiate, and switch it no CDP enable. Moving on, fast Ethernet 05, which is our link to access 3, switch port trunk encapsulation .1Q, switch port mode trunk. This is all just freaking hand jamming and redundant shit. Switch port trunk allow VLAN. What do we got on this one? Move this window over. We got 13 through 14. Add 18 and add 20. So moving on to 06, switch port trunk I always leave out the trunk keyword. Encapsulation.1Q, switch port mode trunk, switch port no negotiate, no CDP enable, and switch port trunk allow VLAN. What do we got on this? 15 through 16. And last interface here for our access layer 07. And switch port trunk allow VLAN 18 and 20. Okay, so our access trunks are now set up, and we can move on to our interface VLANs. So these are going to be our default gateways, if you will, for all of our hosts, depending on the VLAN. So to create one of these, we'll type in interface VLAN and whatever VLAN we want to do. So we're going to start with VLAN 10 off of access 1. Bring that up. We're going to assign that the IP address. Now we would put the IP of the default gateway for VLAN 10, but because we're using HSRP, we're going to use the second available IP in the subnet for this switch, and then the third available IP for distribution 2 when we get to it. So what I mean by that is this one's going to be 5.0.0.2 instead of 1. And that has a /28 mask, which is .240. Now I'm just going to set up the interface VLANs for now, and we'll come back and configure HSRP on them. So it's going to be a lot of hand jamming again. Interface VLAN 11, IP address, second usable of 11 subnet, which is 18, 50018. Interface VLAN 12, IP address 5.0.0.34. Interface VLAN 13, IP address of, move the window over here so we can see it, 5.0.0.50. VLAN 14, IP address 5.0.0.66. And I'll show you why I'm using the second usable here when we start doing HSRP. 50 or 15, IP address 5.0.0.82. 16, IP address 5.0.0.98. Oop, not 68, 98. And we don't have a VLAN 17, so moving on to 18, IP address 5.0.0.114. Which, if you notice, is the management IP for distribution 1. Wait, I did that one wrong. It's 15. I was gonna say, why is that wrong? Okay. 15. 14 is the first usable. Interface VLAN 18, IP address 5.0.0.115. Bam. Okay. So if we do a show run, then below all of our physical interfaces, we'll see our interface VLANs, which have hopefully the right IPs. Hopefully I didn't screw another one up by accident. I think that last one was the only one I messed up. Okay. So we've got an interface VLAN for all of those. Now, do show IP interface brief. Let's just see if they're up. They are. So if we do show VLAN brief, we should have all of those. Yep. I think I came in and added those before. Not really sure. I think if you just do those straight off the bat, they won't be up. You'll have to go in and physically put in all the VLANs that you're going to use under here. Let me see. If I do an interface VLAN 20 and just give it a random IP address 192.168.1.1. Whoops. If we go under there, VLAN 20, yep, it's down. So you have to go in and actually put in those VLANs. Like I said before, the mistake I made in the last video. I can tell I came in here before because they actually have names. Alright, let's move on to HSRP. So we use the second usable IP address for our actual VLAN interfaces. So we're going to assign them a standby group and a standby virtual IP address, which we're going to use the first usable, the actual default gateway address that makes sense. So to do this, we're going to go into interface VLAN 10 for this VLAN, and we're going to use the command standby, and then we need a group number. Actually, you don't need a group number. If you choose to leave the number out, it will automatically put it as standby group 0. But just for simplicity and to keep track of all this, we're going to use standby 10, which means it's for VLAN 10 when we look at it. And we're going to give it an IP of the actual default gateway for VLAN 10, 5.0.0.1. Don't need to do a subnet mask, so that's it for that command. And we're also going to do standby 10 preempt. Now, what this command means, if you don't really know how HSRP works or what it's supposed to do, hopefully you do if you're watching this configuration. But if, well, what we're going to do is we're going to configure this switch for default gateway of all of these VLANs. So by default, all traffic from these VLANs are going to go through this switch, and all of these VLANs are going to go through their default gateway on this switch. So distribution 2 will be a standby router for these VLANs, so it's not actually going to process their traffic unless distribution 1 goes down. Now if it does go down, distribution 2 will take over for all of these VLANs, and if distribution 1 comes back up, if you don't have preemption enabled, distribution 2 will stay the active for everything until it dies, and then that'll flip to distribution 1, which will stay the active until it dies for everything. So we don't want that to happen. We want, if distribution 1 goes down and comes back up, we want all the traffic to shift back to how we had it. So that's what preemption is all about. It'll overthrow the other router once it comes back up if its priority is higher. And speaking of priority, the command standby 10 priority will set what this priority is. By default it's set to 100. Now the switch with the highest priority is going to be the active switch router or whatever for that group. So we're going to set this one, because we want distribution 1 to be active all the time, we're going to set it to just 110. We'll go 10 over the default. Now let's see if we want any others. We've got preemption, we've got the priority, and we've got the IP. Some other 2 commands that you might use. Timers, you can tweak them. By default it's a 3-second hello and 10-second hold time. You can tweak it so if a switch or something goes down and you want the other one to take over quicker, you can kind of tweak these, make them faster or slower if you want. And you can track an interface. So the command tracking, say if you want to just track pinging in a website, just to see if you have a connection to the internet, and if that goes down then you want to switch over to the other one, you can have it like ping an IP or just track an interface, see if that interface goes up or down. And what'll happen is if that interface, or if it can't get any pings to whatever IP you specify, then it'll decrement the priority to below whatever the other one would be. So yeah, for some reason my mind is just really cloudy on that right now and I can't fucking explain it, but you kind of get the point. It'll track an interface. If that interface fucks up, then it'll decrement its priority to where the other standby will take over for it. Alright. Just going to do a show run because I can't really remember what I've already typed in. So we've got interface VLAN 10, standby version 2, that's there by default. Standby 10 IP, so this is the default gateway address for VLAN 10, and standby priority 110, and standby 10 preempt. So we're pretty much just going to do this on all of the other interface VLANs. So interface VLAN 11, we can do that standby 11 IP, and move the window over so I can see it. 5.0.0.17, and standby 11 preempt, and that's it. Interface VLAN 12, standby 12 IP, 5.0.0.33, and standby 12 preempt. Interface VLAN 13, switch the window over so I can see that one now. Standby 13 IP, 5.0.0.49, standby 13 preempt. Interface VLAN 14, come on, I really hope that did what I wanted it to do. Interface VLAN 14, standby 14 IP, 5.0.0.65, whoa. And enable preemption. 15 is 5.0.0.81. Enable preemption. $97 for VLAN 16. I'm really getting tired of all of these messages popping up in my way. Base VLAN no 17, so 18. Standby 18 IP 5.0.0.113. Okay, so we've configured HSRP on all of these sub-interfaces. Or not sub-interfaces, VLAN, interface VLANs, those things. Or, yeah. So I'm going to do a show run and just kind of make sure that we did all this right. So it looks like we've got an IP and preemption enabled on all of our interface VLANs here. Oh shit. Shit! I forgot to assign them priorities. Fuck. Alright. Interface VLAN 11. Standby 11 priority 110 because we want distribution 1 to be primary when it's all said and done for this VLAN. Interface VLAN 12, standby 12, priority 110, same story. Interface VLAN 13, standby 13, priority 110. Now that is where that priority will end. On VLAN, interface VLAN 14, we're going to give that a priority of 95, which is 5 below the default 100. So we're going to assign this priority to all of the interfaces that we want distribution 2 to be the active for. Whoa. Standby 16, priority 95. 18, standby 18, priority 95. Okay, write that, we'll do a show run. Now we should have everything. Okay, so we've got priority 110 for our first VLANs 10 through 13 and priority 95 for 14 through 18. Okay, so configuration of HSRP is done. Now what we want to do is tune spanning tree to kind of match this. So this is simple. We just type in spanning tree VLAN and then we do a range, so 10 through 13. We're going to assign it a spanning tree priority of 4096. Lowest, just so we can make sure that this is always going to be the root bridge for these first VLANs. And we're going to put in the command spanning tree VLAN 14 through 18. We're going to give that a priority of 8100, whatever, whichever that matches. I can't remember this. 192. So that'll ensure that it will be the secondary root bridge for those VLANs, because we're going to configure distribution 2 with the inverse of these. So 1 through 10, or 10 through 13, shit. Those are going to be a priority of 8192 on distro 2, and these VLANs 14 through 18 will be priority, or yeah, priority of 4096. So spanning tree is done. Okay, next is going to be our routed ports. So let me just move this over so I can see this, or maybe I can scroll over a little bit. Okay. Whoa. Okay, so our port gig should be 1. Nope, gig 2. It's our link between the distribution switches. So let's go into interface G02. We're going to give that the IP address of 5.0.1.29. And it's got a /30 mask, so 252 is what we're going to use. Oh, okay, here we go. So we can't give it an IP address because right now it is still technically a switch port. So what we have to do is no switch port. And I'm surprised this didn't yell at me because, oh no, it'll yell at me later. You'll see. 5.0.1.29 with the /32. No shut that. Exit. Gig 01 is our connection to the core, so we're going to give that the IP address of 5.0.1.13. Actually, 14 with a /30. And forgot to do no switch port again. Give that the IP address. Write that. So if you don't If you didn't really know what I just did, we just assigned an IP to these two ports, which are layer 3 interfaces between these two locations. Okay. So with that, let's set up EIGRP. Now this is where it's going to yell at me. Router EIGRP. We're just going to use 69. Sounds like a good number, right? Ooh, IP routing not enabled. So all we have to do is type in IP routing. Easy enough. Router EIGRP 69, and we're just going to throw in our entire subnet that we got from the beginning. So use this /23 with actually we're going to do 2 /24s just to make it a little bit easier. Network 5.0.0.0 with a wildcard mask of 255 there, and the same thing but 1.0. Bam. And just throw in a no auto summary. I don't think I've done a video on the EIGRP yet. This will show you the configuration for it. It's really simple, but I might go into further detail on it in a later video if you actually want to know some more specifics about it, but that's pretty much all there is. Okay, so we've got IP routing. Let's just give it a quick host name. Distro1 and line VTY. What do we got here? Is 015? Yeah. Now, what do we say that we set this up as before? Username and password is Cisco, so we're going to do the login local, like I've showed you before. I'm also going to throw on logging synchronous. Like, holy crap, I really want that on. And we don't have the access list. I'm just going to go over here and get that real quick. Just copy that. Exit out of that, and we're going to do IP access list standard MGMT, and paste this one line in there for our VTY line access list. Exit out of that, go back into line VTY 015, and we're going to do access class. Do we have to say name? No. MGMT in and out. Why not? Do it right. Now, I don't think there was anything that I left out in the VTY line here. Logging local, blah 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 blah, speed, no. Okay. By default, transport is everything, so I'm not going to worry about that. Now we do need to define a username, which is Cisco, and set a privilege level of 15 with secret of Cisco. So management is now set up on that switch. I'm not leaving anything out. Anything at all. Don't want to leave anything out. Trunks, HSRP, blah 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 blah. Okay. Looks like distribution 1 is done. So what we're going to do is just a show run, and we're going to copy all of this into Notepad like we did in the last video, and tweak it and shit it back out on distribution 2. Just to save us time. It's a lot of hand jamming that went on there. Go into Notepad, paste this up, and the changes we're going to want to make, obviously, hostname, we need it to be distro2. IP routing, that's good, we're going to use it. We want same username and all that. Okay, now, actually, I don't really want any of this under Fast Ethernet 02 because that was a mistake. I mistyped that one. Now, this is what's good about having a standard network setup. So, the same thing off of distribution 1 we just set up. 3 goes to access 1, 4 goes to access 2, and so on. Same thing's true over here on distro 2. The IP routed ports are also the same, so we really don't have to change any of the interface designators here. So all of these trunks are already set up as good. Good. Gigabit. So for these, we're going to want to change this one from 14 to 15. and what was it, 14, was that 12? Hold up, let me look at that. Do we need to go down or up? Actually, that one's on a whole different subnet. So gig 1 on distro 2 is going to the other core switch. So that one's going to be 1.18. That makes sense. That's this link over here between core 2 and distro 2. And on distro 1 it was to core 1. So using a different subnet there. Now gig 02 is just straight over to distribution 1. So this will just up to 1.30. And our interface VLANs, what we need to do is swap the priorities and change the IP addresses. So we're changing this one to the third usable, so 5003, and bumping the priority down from 110 to 95. This stays the same. We still want preemption, all that good stuff. So from 18 to 19 on VLAN 11, bump this down to 95. From 34 to 35 on VLAN 12, bump it down to 95. From 50 to 51 on 13, bump it down to 95. Now on these, we're going to bump that up 67, but we're going to raise the priority to 110. 81 to 82, 110. Wait. This stays 81. This goes from 82 to 83. Good idea to pay attention when you do this. I never do. 115 to 116, and from 95 to 110. And VLAN 20 was just an example thing. That's not going to stay. I'll just take this command out here. Actually, the whole interface VLAN 20 altogether. And router egrep 69, we're going to leave that, advertising the same subnets. And access list. True across both of them. So it looks like we're good. Hopefully I'm not leaving anything out. So copy all that, open up distribution 2, make this full screen, go into configure terminal and lay the paste down. We see that egrep 69 has found a neighbor, it's up, and we should see HSRP messages start to flow. Let me see if show VLAN brief. Okay, well, VLAN 10 will come up right there as it just did. We don't have VLANs for everything else, so I'm just going to do this the quick and lazy way. I'm going to go to distribution 1 and copy. Shit. Just kidding. I'm just going to do it by hand. Not distro 1, I want distro 2. Why are all of our trunks down? Okay, VLAN 11, VLAN 12, VLAN 13, VLAN 14, VLAN 15, VLAN 16, VLAN 18, and VLAN 20. Do show VLAN brief, should have 10 through basically 20. Alright, we're good. Do show run, just make sure it all got in there. Yeah, we got trunks, good, good, good. Routed, blah, 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 blah. Interface VLANs. Alright, now if we sit back, we should see HSRP. No, egrep. No, yeah, okay, cool. So it's going to do a neighbor for each subnet apparently. And we've got our HSRP messages in here. So we've got group 16, which is VLAN 16, moved from standby to active. Cool, we want it like that on this switch. Also want 15 on active. Now down here we see that VLAN 13 moved from speak to standby. That is what we want. We want VLANs 10 through 13 to be in standby state. Now to verify this, we can use the command show standby. And this will show all of our standby groups. So here we see VLAN 10, group 10, state is standby. Virtual IP address is the default gateway for that VLAN. These are the virtual MAC addresses, and here's the hello timer settings next to low when that's going to be sent. Preemption is enabled. The active router is 5.0.0.2, which is distribution 1. Standby router is local, distribution 2. And the priority is 95 and configured 95. Now, when this would be different is, say we're doing the interface tracking thing, and that whatever interface it was tracking went down, it would decrement it. So here you might have like a priority of 85 and the configured was 95. So that's when those would be different. Group name is blah blah blah, that's a default thing. So group 11, standby, 12, standby, 13, standby. Get down here to 14, state is active. Active router is local, standby router is 5.0.0.66. So default gateway for VLAN 14, which is on distribution 1. So that's working just fine. You can also do some verification. Let's go down here to this PC. Give it the IP address 5.0.0. Let's go with 5. This is in VLAN 10, so all of this is going to correspond to VLAN 10. Default gateway is the virtual IP address that we gave the HSRP group. Don't need to worry about a DNS server. Now if we go in here and we do ping 5.0.0.1, which is its default gateway, and I think it's in, so we'll do like 1,000. So just keep the ping going. So we're talking with the default gateway, which we all know is distribution 1, answering back for that. Now if we take distribution 1 down, just going to do right and do a reload. Let's bring that PC back up. We'll see the pings have paused. We'll probably get a couple timeouts, and we should see the pings start flowing again. If we did it right. Yep, there we go. So you might be thinking, oh well, that switch came back up. Yeah, but it hasn't loaded anything yet. So right now these pings are going off of distribution 2. It failed over. HSRP did its thing. We can see on distribution 1 all of our groups are going from speak, standby, standby, active, blah blah blah. We should see them realize that they're wrong and turn back around to how they're supposed to be. See our pings timed out again and start back up. So now these pings down here are flowing from distribution 1. So HSRP setup is good. That's how you do it, if you paid attention to anything I said. Alright. So in one of these videos I'm going to have to set up DHCP for these hosts, because I'm not going to statically assign them all. But hopefully you got a little bit of something out of this video. Learned how to set up trunks. Yay, that was something new, wasn't it? Interface VLANs, HSRP between these two guys, blah blah, failover. We just saw how that happened. The next video we're gonna go focus on the core, set up these ether channels, and it's probably gonna be about it. That's gonna be easy. egrip is gonna be the main thing there. Eventually we'll move on over here. Once we get this whole thing set up and connected out to here, we'll do some verification and lost my train of thought. I forget what we're gonna do. I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll verify all that, I guess. Sure, I had a point there. I forgot what it was, but whatever. Oh, we're gonna test management. Once we get all of this set up, we'll test management. Make sure we can remote in and make sure none of these can remote in. But anyways, thanks for watching this. Hopefully you learned a little bit of something, and I'll see you in the next video.